Morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. In my travels throughout Canada and the world, speaking to leaders like yourselves, regardless of the industry, yours specifically being hotels, the number one solution that leaders are looking for is how do we manage the employee experience? How do we build high-performing teams? Because there's a realization that what happens within the business is ultimately affected and felt by our guests, our customers, our suppliers. You see it on the top line, the bottom line. It permeates throughout the entire organization. And one thing that I've learned really well is that to build teams that stay, grow, and perform, we don't have to work harder or push harder. Two things that work extremely well is how intentional are we and how caring can we be? Not just for employees, but for the human experience. Often when we come into leadership positions, we're so inundated with the day-to-day that sometimes we forget or neglect that we are leading human beings that have certain motivations, aversions, and their own purposes, which should ladder up to the greater purpose that is our organizations. And how do we build our restaurants, run our hotels? In 2017, I lived in this hotel for 3 weeks. I didn't leave the hotel for 7 days. Literally, it was a Howard Hughes type moment. Did not step foot outside of the hotel because the Hotel Monteleone invited me to host one presentation 15 times over 3 weeks. Their client that they had welcomed, Alfa Romeo, they were coming back into the North American market, wanted a speaker to talk about what I'm going to share today. And while my processes and tactics and best practices have evolved since 2017, the commonality is building a people-first culture. One thing that I learned about the Hotel Monteleone, which is one of the regarded hotels of the world, is their attention to care and how intentional they are, not just with the customer experience, but with their own team member experience or the human experience. I now call that the people-first culture. Being in a hotel for 3 weeks taught me many things. The greatest lesson was actually by Herb Chambers. A little bit about Herb Chambers. He owns hotels throughout North America and is one of the largest car dealership owners on the continent. I sat next to him at a gala dinner in the second week. I didn't know much about him. I walked away to use the washroom and I came back to dinner and sat next to Herb. And in that short period of time, somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, you're sitting next to Herb." Like he was a luminary or somebody very important. And I said, "Yeah, he seems very friendly." And the person in this less than 30 seconds said, "This is a little bit about him. He's one of North America's largest donors to hospitals. As I mentioned, one of the largest hoteliers and car dealer owners, but he's really under the radar. For what it's worth, he's worth a few $1 billion, but you would never suspect it." Eager, I ran back to my seat and continued to have dinner and conversation with him. And I asked him, what do you attribute your decades upon decades of success to? It's like time stopped. 60 seconds went by. He looked down at his plate, and you could tell he was thinking very deeply about what the response was going to be. He looks up at me and says, "My success is because of green apples." And I was like, okay, I didn't expect a philosophical answer. I thought it was going to be something like manage your cash or something that you might suspect he would say. And I said, tell me more. He said, "If you go to any of my hotels or any of my car dealerships, you're going to see a basket at the front desk or the concierge stand. And within that basket, there are green apples. To our guests, they're there to enjoy. But the biggest impact that those green apples have for our business is a reminder to our team, regardless of their position. There could be on the maintenance team, a salesperson, a catering manager, anybody on our payroll. It is a reminder that attention to detail matters. He said, if you go to any of my businesses, those apples are polished, there are no stickers on them, and the stems are pruned properly. So for our guests, it seems like a little treat. But for our team members, every time they walk by that basket, it is a reminder, attention to detail. They inspect what they expect. Is there a sticker on it? Is it polished? And are the stems properly pruned? That attention to detail permeates everywhere. And when I was starting my career, the COO of the company that I worked with said to me, Michel, R&D does not have to stand for research and development. It can stand for rip off and duplicate. Essentially, go out in the world and learn from other industries. Ask yourself, how can we take these best practices and bring them into our industry? Because that is how you build an experience that has never been seen before in your industry by learning from neighboring ones. So I did some R&D based off of Herb. This is a picture of our napkin holder at one of my restaurants. And what I've trained my general managers to do is every single time you come into the restaurant in the morning, the first thing you should look at is, are the napkins as high as this? If they are not, somebody yesterday did not do their closing duties properly. And that is for you to be on guard, because if this was done incorrectly, something else was probably done incorrectly as well. But if this was done correctly, praise your team, because they paid attention to the details of the business. And we don't suffer pain in our industry by catastrophic blows. It's often paper cuts that disarm us and make things more difficult. Something as simple as a closing or opening checklist. I started my career, how are we doing with the microphone? We're good? I'll speak a little higher. Are we good in the back? Yep. My pleasure. I started my professional career in 2007. I lived in Vancouver, and I'm so happy to be back in British Columbia, by the way. The air, the everything, that's a different keynote. But in 2007, there were 3 very popular organizations to work within, amongst others. There was Lululemon, there was the Olympic Committee, and then there was the company that I chose. 1-800-GOT-JUNK. An industry that could not be any further than restaurants or hotels. But they had just become the best place in Canada by Maclean's magazine. So that was really intriguing to me. Their slogan of the company back then, and even today, found my expertise, company culture, and was what I decided was going to be my expertise. I spent 5 years there. It was my real world MBA. And anybody that will listen, I will tell you, that is the most operationally sound company I have ever been a part of or studied. Fast forward a few years, I went into management consulting. I was helping companies of different industries, different sizes, globally help make their employees and their customers fall in love with them. And now today, I own restaurants. I own 6 restaurants throughout North America. And similarly to you, perhaps, our biggest challenge is the people part. To give you context, the number one KPI, the metric I care about the most, is employee turnover. More positively, retention. In my fast casual restaurant industry, competitors of mine plan for 100% year-over-year employee turnover. That's painful. Forget about what that does to your attention, your focus. Turnover is expensive, but think of what that does for your customers. They don't know anybody. There's nobody to remember anything about them or their orders. You can't remember anything about their families. That is the big pain point of employee turnover. I'm happy to say that all of 2025, my turnover rate was only 7%. And I'm going to share some of the tactics that are human-driven today. Regardless of whether you're in restaurants or hotels, they're totally applicable, tried, tested, and true across industry. In 2018, I wrote a book called People First Culture. And I really wanted to share how can theory and tactics do three things. Build high-performing teams, ones where people have authentic engagement, so that our customers can have a revered customer experience. Now, everyone in this room would like to have those three things. But why is it that some excel and some others might fall short? I developed something I call the 3P strategy. Purpose, process, and profit. Profit is something I absolutely strive for, but I want to do it the right way. I see profit as a reward and an outcome of having a people-first culture. What is the purpose of our companies, our organizations, our hotels? Why do we come to work? I'll go even as far as saying, why do we exist? To be able to have purpose, we must have alignment. I want you, if you could, please close your eyes, and with your right hand, I want you to point to where you think north is. So close your eyes. With your right hand, where do you think north is? Okay, keep going. For the person pointing up, that's a problem. Okay, keep your right hand up. Open your eyes. So nobody really knows where it is, but I can tell you, according to my compass, it's that way. According to the compass. So think of our workplaces. If we were to ask our teams, how aligned are we? What is the purpose of our company? Why do we come to work? Why do we exist? Would you all hear the same answer in unison? My friend Shane Skilling and Shane owns a company called Hot Specs in Canada. It's a market research company. He does market research for the RBCs of the world, the Coca-Colas, large organizations. Him and I wanted to host a study to see if there's alignment within workplaces within Canada. We surveyed many leaders. 83% felt that their team was connected to the overall mission of the company. We then surveyed the employees of those same leaders anonymously. Only 13% could recite the mission, the vision, and the core values of the company. So do you see the disconnect? They were more disconnected than this room figuring out where north was. Okay? Now, that was a fun little exercise, but within our businesses, that disconnect between why we exist as organizations and our purpose and our team members. We're all leaders in our position, but our team members are the ones that build the relationships with the guests. I'm here with you today, and I have 6 restaurants operating in my absence. There is a strong argument that the frontline team members of our organizations are more important than we are. They're the ones that build the relationships and the rapport with our guests so that the guest comes back and has an experience that they've never seen before. But our responsibility is to create that alignment, make sure that our teams know what the mission, the vision, and the core values are of the company, because I'm certain all of our organizations have them. But what we are guilty of doing, myself included, is checking a box saying we have a mission, vision, and core values, but that's table stakes. The real value is how can we create the alignment so all of our teams, at a drop of a hat, could mention our core values. How were they created? Why were they created this way? My favorite team right now, I believe one of Canada's great exports to the world, is the Cirque du Soleil. I have spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours studying this organization. One of the reasons why I love them is because there is no Christine Sinclair or Wayne Gretzky of the Cirque du Soleil. I call this nameless leadership. I'm confident that nobody can name the person in the middle on that unicycle. Everybody just comes to work nameless to deliver an experience for the audience that they've never seen before. How can we take that into hotels to make sure we have nameless leadership and the humility to deliver an experience to our customers and guests that they've never seen before? Another reason why I love the Cirque du Soleil is because the makeup artist or the technician operating the lighting is just as important as the people on those unicycles. In some businesses, we call those people back office. Language and great company cultures really matter. Imagine being that person's in back office. That doesn't sound as important as people who might be on the front lines now, does it? Think of your industry, your housekeepers, your administrators, the individuals that aren't guest-facing. Do we make them feel as important as the person at our front desks? That is a game of inches that we can all play to ensure that we create that alignment behind the purpose of our organizations. We are all very fortunate to have Stephanie close out the conference. And one of the reasons why I love studying high-performing sports teams is because they win together and they learn together. You may have thought I was about to say lose together. How do we bounce back from a loss or a moment of failure? We're either going to sulk and finger point, which creates disalignment, or we're going to learn together and huddle up. Every December 15th, depending on the day of the second Friday of every December, similar to a high-performing sports team, I actually don't do an end-of-year review with each individual on my team. Similar to a sports team, we will review the year together, but not on an individual basis. That's called an exit interview with some sports teams, right? But we sit down, we have honest conversations with each other. I'm not there with a clipboard giving you a 4 out of 5 or anything. It's just a genuine conversations, and that's what great high-performing teams do. What is the purpose of our team member? Thinking of the 3P strategy, staying with purpose first. Every single person on your team has a different definition of success. They describe their purpose differently. Our job as leaders, as people-first leaders, is to serve that purpose. That is how you get them to stay. That is how you get them to grow. When they feel a genuine connection with their leader. Let me introduce you to somebody that works on my team named Brian Hernandez. Brian is 23 years old. He's been promoted 4 times in under a year and a half. He's running one of our locations today as we speak as a general manager. He first started off as a team member. To contextualize our organizational chart within the restaurant, it goes team member, senior team member, team lead, general manager. So he's risen through the ranks very quickly, and he's a young individual, a young emerging professional. Let me tell you about the interview process that I took him through. We host group virtual interviews to begin. Brian was in a group virtual interview when he first started with Naomi. And one of the interview questions I ask is, tell me something you have taught yourself in the last 36 months. Brian says, I taught myself how to complete a Rubik's Cube in less than 15 seconds. Hence why he's holding that Rubik's Cube in his hand. I said, okay. It's me, Naomi, and him on the call. I said, do you have the Rubik's Cube on you? He looks off screen. He says, I do. Goes off screen, comes back with the Rubik's Cube. And I said, Julianne, my assistant, was also on the call. I said, Julianne, fire up your clock. And I said, Brian, could you show us? Looks at it, observes it. Must have been 10 seconds. So first off, I thought to myself, wow, what a lie that would have been if he had not been honest about it. I was expecting him just to leave the interview and be like, oh, I got caught in a lie. You can see just by his facial expression, he's a hospitable, people-first individual. Look at the smile. Needless to say, he's an intellectual to be able to do that. I've never completed a Rubik's Cube in my life, largely because I'm an impatient person. That's a self-awareness for you. But number 3, great under pressure. Of course, I made him an offer. So then I go to Naomi, I say, Naomi, what is something you've taught yourself in the last 36 months? She's like, are you kidding? I have to go after that guy? She ended up saying, I taught myself how to cook a beef Wellington. Has anybody made a beef Wellington themselves? Yeah? It's not easy. It's not easy. I said, you're hired as well, after the conversation. But Brian doesn't want to be my general manager. Let me tell you why. He's also studying to be an electrical engineer. He graduates in 18 months. I work with electrical engineers because I build restaurants. So I introduced him to our electrical engineer, and I asked him, Nico is his name, I said, Nico, could you please make yourself available for 1 hour a month to coach Brian as he's growing within his career? Because he's going to leave in 18 months, and I want it to be celebratory. That's his purpose. I serve his purpose, and he serves what I care about, and I get to be with you today on a Tuesday while the restaurants keep running. And the turnover is only 7% because Brian feels that care. You care about what I care about what you care about. That is part of the reason why I've been with my wife for 10 years as well. Whether it's personal relationships or professional relationships, it's a human experience that we have to serve and design and be intentional about. What is the purpose of the customer or the guest? You can't deliver the same customer experience to every single guest. And we're all here in this room with our teams providing a great experience. But we need to ensure that they have the best education possible to be able to create a never-seen-before customer experience. I didn't tell you this, but at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, my first role within the company, cutting my teeth, was in the call center. 1-800-GOT-JUNK gets 1 million phone calls a year. I would take 100 a day. My shift started at 4 a.m. I was 22 in the summer. I had to go to bed at 7 p.m. Again, I was 22. I should have been at bars with my friends, but I wanted to learn how to build great companies at an early age. And one thing that I learned sitting in that chair taking 100 calls a day is that you cannot deliver the same experience to everybody. And this is where I thought of the 3 guest personality types. You have the director-style personality type. They do not want to talk to you about the Vancouver Canucks or the Whitecaps when you check them in. They don't care about the weather. They just want to get into their rooms. Who is a director-style personality type? Who likes the efficiency? Come on, there's got to be more directors than that. Yeah, right? It's not, just because we don't love the chit-chat doesn't mean we're not friendly people. Our definition of success is just different. Efficiency. I love Netflix because of that. I don't have to go to Blockbuster. I love the TD Bank app or the RBC Bank app. I don't want to go into your retail environments, and that's okay. One of the misconceptions is never deliver transactional customer experiences. In some respects, some groups of customers actually want it to be transactional, but their definition of success is speed. Next is the socializer personality type. That's, your team members are biting their lip a little bit, being like, oh dear God, this conversation's been going on for 15 minutes. I have 15 people trying to check into my hotel right now. How do I get out of this conversation without being rude to you? We got to teach them how to get out of that conversation while still being hospitable. This individual is a phenomenal customer. They're going to take your recommendations. If they're dining at your restaurants, on your properties, in your hotels, they are going to allow you to be upsold, cross-sold other things. They're, in my opinion, easier to build rapport with. The Brian Hernandez do so well with this customer, but the Brian Hernandez might struggle with the director style. It's our responsibilities as leaders to ensure that our teams have the right education for the right customer. And then there's the passive. The passive is trying to evaluate quickly, can I trust this person or business? Maybe they've had a bad experience before with your hotel brand in another city. So they're a bit skeptical. They're a bit guarded. You ask them, how's your day going? And they say, good. You know, Felix might say, good, and how's your day going, right? They're not boring. They're not dismissive. They're just sizing you up a little bit. In my experience, the passive, once their guards are down, will trust you just as much, maybe even a little bit more than the director or the socializer. Meet Eric. Can you guess what type of personality type he is? Definitely. You can tell in his ponytail, his glasses, his beard, his clothing. Is that a stereotype? Perhaps, but it is correct. He is absolutely, look at his smile. That is a socializer. So what we can train our teams to do and what we do in our restaurants is pay attention to body language. As our customers are waiting to order at our restaurants, we have a 5-second rule. And perhaps this is something you could use in your hotel as well. As your guest is walking up to check in, try to pick up on some clues in this might be a socializer, because now our team knows who they have to become for that moment. Do you know why customer service is so hard? We can't pick which personality type is coming today. Raise your hand if you would love to serve director-style personality types all day, every day. Maybe why you might like that is because it's like boom, 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 boom. Who would rather service socializers all day, every day? Maybe because you're a socializer. Passives. I have some people that love passives because they want to show themselves and the customer, the guest, you can bring your guard down with me. They see it as a challenge. Challenge is we don't get to pick and choose who shows up today. Now that we have a high-performing team, we understand the purpose of the Brian Hernandez of the world, or somebody on your team. Brian has authentic engagement that comes every single day. Now is the optimum time to build process within our companies. Because often when we build system and process and it falls short of our expectation, we're like, well, I built that SOP. Why isn't anybody living within it? Why aren't they doing it properly? I have a closing checklist and an opening checklist. It's because the steps before didn't happen. People don't fail, processes do. That is something that I was told at 1-800-GOT-JUNK in 2007. And something that I tell my teams today. So if you have somebody on your team who's not getting it, Johnny just doesn't get it, sometimes we say, well, there's 2 processes that I would recommend. Number 1, did we train Johnny properly? Did we train him based off of our learning and development? Did we skip some steps? Or did we train Johnny using a dated learning and development process, or one that doesn't speak to his learning style? If you feel confident that no, our learning and development process is fantastic, then maybe the process that broke down is the interview process. How did Johnny get into the company in the first place? Who did the interview? If this person isn't a culture fit, what can we do to go back and refine the process to ensure that we're welcoming people who are going to be able to align with us? This is something I call the People First Culture Hiring Pyramid. I'm going to spend some time in the culture interview. We ask a dozen questions in the culture interview to understand if these individuals are going to fit within our core values. We ask two questions in the culture interview per core value that we have. That is a fantastic way to ensure alignment behind your core values. Look at your core values and ask 2 questions per core value. That's going to increase the likelihood that you only hire people who are going to fit within your values. I'm going to do an audience interaction. This is how I do it. If you do not want me to interact or engage with you, divert your eyes and look down. Okay, some people are looking up again. If you don't mind, make eye contact with me. Felix, because we have rapport already, I got you. I met Felix. We were on the same flight from Vancouver, and we shared a taxi together. So Felix, naturally, we have a rapport. This is one of the interview questions that I ask. I've been asking it since 2016. Because I wrote about it in my book, literally hundreds of companies around the world across industry now ask it. I was taken back by how effective it was going to be. But I wanted a question that would bridge the interview process and the onboarding experience. The question goes like this. What is an indulgence that you cannot live without that costs less than $20? So whether you're a marketer, an accountant, or a frontline team member, we ask everybody in the company this question: what is an indulgence you can't live without that costs less than $20? Felix, do you have something in mind? Could I get the microphone, actually, pardon me, Vanda? Thank you. I'll take it from you. So you're with your peers. Let's keep it legal. Text me what the answer is, the real answer is after, if it's different. An indulgence you can't live without that costs less than $20.
Oh, that's a good one.
I've heard a bunch of things. I've heard pizza. I've heard coffee. How do you like to treat yourself?
I think a well-rated rentable movie.
A well-rated rentable movie. Okay.
One that you don't get on Netflix or on Prime Video, that you have to rent.
Okay, great. Could you think of a movie that comes to mind? One that maybe you've already seen before, or one that you've been meaning to see? I've never heard this answer, by the way. This is great. Is it a classic?
Before it was available on Netflix, I think I'd rented The Godfather.
Okay, solid answer.
Yeah.
Okay, I need one more participant, preferably on this side of the room. Do I have the other mic on this side? There you go. Oh, thank you, Vanda. An indulgence you can't live without that costs less than $20. Does anybody want to raise their hand and partake? Thank you.
Spotify Premium.
Spotify Premium. These ones are hard. All right. Spotify Premium. Is that an indulgence? Yeah.
So I can have free Spotify whenever
Yeah. Yep.
because given the way that I work, the ads interrupt my workflow entirely.
Okay. Whoa, this one's a good one. Is there a type of, before Spotify, how would you consume your music? And sorry, on Spotify, are you consuming music, podcasts, audiobooks, all of them, or is there a particular one?
Always music.
Okay. Favorite artist to listen to?
Varies dramatically. At the moment, it's a folk band from the UK.
Say that again.
At the moment, it's a folk band from the UK. But
What is the name of the
dramatically.
folk band?
Show of Hands.
Show of hands. Okay, you almost ruined the bit, guys. That was difficult, but I've got it. Show of hands, Godfather. So let's say Felix applied to be a team member. And your name? Phil. Phil, you had applied to be a marketer. We just happened to be recruiting these positions at the same time. Welcome. You guys are both hired. Your first day is Monday. Here's the address of our head office. They show up on Monday. The first thing that we do is we'll take them through some company culture training. You come into our room, and for Phil and for Felix, we are going to have a gift bag with a handwritten card. I write all of the handwritten cards. I've not outsourced that to anybody on our team. And language matters in these cards. Because you're recruiting high-performing people like Brian Hernandez or like Phil and like Felix, the language we're going to put is, Felix, thank you for choosing us. You are phenomenal. We're so fortunate to have you. I bet you had dozens of companies offering you positions. Thank you for choosing us. Because when you're recruiting high-performing people, they are choosing you as much as you are choosing them. Within that, I would buy some sort of Godfather memorabilia for you. And I would buy maybe a record or memorabilia of Show of Hands. Because I can't buy Spotify. Like, I don't want to buy you. Here's 1 month, right? Got to dig deeper, get more creative, be more intentional, care deeper. So why do I do that? Cool. I gave him a gift. There's a lot more psychology behind why I do this, to increase employee retention and increase performance. How often do we ask our team members to personalize the customer experience? What if I just got you any movie, like memorabilia? What if I got you a 1 month free to Spotify? I'll take it. But because I personalize it to you, now you know what that looks and feels like. If we want to create experiences that our guests have never seen before in the hotel industry, we must do it to our teams first so that they know what that looks and feels like. And then the third reason I do this, they're about to go into training, learn how we do things here. By spending only $20, I increased their engagement because they're like, wow, I didn't expect this. I like this place. I like this person. This is an experience I've never seen before. Your eyes are wide. You're eager to learn. The knowledge retention goes up. You are going to perform faster. How often do we train people sometimes and you're catching them yawning and are you like, are you even paying attention? How often sometimes in our careers, think of the moment you got a job somewhere and nobody even knew you were starting that day. Felix shows up to his workplace, perhaps when he was a teenager, and somebody's like, hey, does anybody know, like, who's training Felix today? Come on. We haven't earned the permission to ask Felix to deliver a great experience when we haven't set ourselves up to be able to create an experience for them. That is how you can supercharge the performance of your team, all by spending $20. And hand on heart, I do not like repeating processes year over year because I like to keep things fresh. I've been using this one since 2016. It still works. I've ran into employees that no longer work with me that still tell me, I have that gift that you gave me. Now, you must include the word indulgence when you ask the question, what is an indulgence you can't live without that costs less than $20? One time, I walked into a new training room and there were 6 people there. 5 of them had these little gifts. And then one person had a huge, like a 24-pack roll of toilet paper. I was like, why would this person have toilet paper? I spoke to Renata. She was the manager at the time. I said, what's going on here? And she said, Michel, I forgot to include the word indulgence. What is something you can't live without that costs less than $20? So if you're going to use this question, you better do it right. You better do it right. That's a disclaimer. Meet Kimberly. Kimberly emailed me one time and said, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, do you know anybody that works at a bank in Canada? I would love to work for a bank. I said, I do. I'm sure I've got somebody on my LinkedIn. Her purpose is to go work and build a career in a bank, not at my restaurants, and I'm okay with that. So you'll see we posted on our Instagram. Our Instagram posted a nice, pleasant picture of her. You can tell she's hospitable. Look at that smile. Look how clean her uniform is. Things that matter to me. And essentially what I'm saying here is, who wants my best employee? I tagged RBC, I tagged TD Bank, and at the end it says, although she'll be missed by our team, we would like to help her find her next great role and career opportunity. Who can help make introductions? We posted this on our company Instagram. I posted on my personal Instagram. I posted on my LinkedIn, and you just should have seen the flood of people tagging people. Hey, Joe, can you help Michelle and Kimberly? Hey, this person. She went down to part-time with us, got the job at RBC, and last week, 2 weeks ago, she said, Michelle, I can't work part-time anymore because I've moved into a managerial position at RBC. And I'm so proud and happy. How I know that by ensuring that she feels taken care of, she's going to take care of the things that I care about, and she's going to leave, and I'm fine with that. She's going to help train her replacement, and she is going to speak about Brasa Peruvian Kitchen, my company, just like I speak so highly of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So when we reflect on our leadership, what do we want people saying about our companies, our hotels, and ourselves as leaders? Are we people-first leaders? I wish Kimberly was still here, but life goes on. We need to have succession planning for our best people. A micro guest experience. This is the stuff that happens when you build a people-first culture within your companies. It's a small, memorable, and subtle gesture you do for your guest that resonates with that guest for years and years and years, and you become case studies in your industry. Meet Alyssa. Alyssa put the MGE, the micro guest experience strategy, into action. She was serving some tables and recognized there's an event happening here because of the balloons. She learned that there was a baby shower. So one of the guests was about to have a great moment in their lives. So how do we take that guest intelligence to create a micro guest experience that all of these people at this table have never seen before? So Alyssa goes to Danielle Herman, our hostess at the time, and says, I have an MGE opportunity at tables 50, 51, 52. Here's the story. Danielle walks across the street in real time, goes across to Shoppers Drug Mart, buys a box of diapers, a hand rattle, gift wrapping paper, brings it back to the restaurant in real time while these guests are eating, wraps the gift, writes a handwritten card, gives it to Alyssa. Alyssa hands it to the guest, and as you can see, this is an experience that this guest has never seen before. So what is the profit from this, if you will? Well, one, good business. Alyssa and Danielle are encouraged to have fun and do gifting. This is marketing. 5-star Google reviews, customer retention, Maybe they bought dessert when they didn't expect to buy dessert. This customer is going to be a customer for life because we first found great people like Alyssa and Danielle Herman. Then we created the process to have them live within. And what comes from this is profit. I'm a very profit-driven entrepreneur. I do have investors and I have a fiduciary responsibility to make them a return. But I want to do it the right way. I don't want to do it by stepping on people, by not thinking about the human experience. Profit is the reward for building a people-first culture. Whoa, do you see those reflexes? I used to play hockey, and that was my reflexes in action. Profit's a reward. We don't wake up in the morning and say, "Profit, where are you?" We have to navigate toward it. Every company across industry globally believes they deliver a great customer experience. Some companies can confidently say, my employee experience is just as good as my customer experience. If you're encouraged to do both well, month over month, year over year, decade over decade, I highly recommend the people first culture and the 3P strategy. Thank you for your time.